I'm the luckiest guy alive. I really do believe that. Getting into that car every time was just like a nightmare because it was filled with crap.
I will never allow under my watch one of my kids to experience what I did. Michael, what is going on? It's good to see you again, brother.
You too, man. I'm very
Yeah,
grateful to be here.
I'm excited to have you. We were joking the last time I saw you. I was in your studio in New York in January, and I was like sicker than a dog, like getting through that podcast. But some of the clips that you pushed out, I don't know if you know this or not, but they got re-released on these monster platforms. Like I think Parenting with Purpose was one, a few other ones with like, I mean, hundreds of thousands of followers, and like some of the views that we got from your show were just absolutely insane. So I didn't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, I mean, look, dude, you know what's so interesting? I did see a bunch of reposts, like a bunch of handles repost that episode, and I really do believe that for whatever reason, people have really my content around parenting and marriage has resonated with a lot of people. And so, like, I've just seen it over and over again. You know, I just had a post go viral, um, that was just talking about what I think our children want and, not to get it twisted, right? Like, I think children, specifically younger children, as they get older, I'm sure this changes, but from my experience, you know, our kids want our attention more than anything, more than our our bank accounts, more than our cars, more than our homes, more than our trips, more than, they want my sons want my attention. And that is what makes their day in and day out. They want my attention. They want to say, "Hey, dad," and they want me to be very available to say, "What's up, buddy?" As opposed to being lost in my phone or lost in my head, about my work and so I've really been trying to be as cognizant as I can about making sure that I am present for those boys as often and as much as possible. And it's not easy, right? Like work is intense. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm never not working. I do my best to shut it down at 6 o'clock. But ultimately, there's always things in I am my own boss. And so I've got no one else to lean on if things aren't going well. And so there's always things just, sort of kicking around in my brain and really trying to quiet that noise to be there with my family has been a goal of mine for the last 2 years. And, I'm getting better and better and better, spending more and more time with them alone, where I was just actually, it's kind of fun that we're doing this podcast today. I just got off of an epic 2-day adventure with my older son, Finn. I took him down to the city. We got a really cool hotel. I took him to some of the New York City's best pizza. We got some ice cream. We watched The Nightmare Before Christmas and Ace Ventura in the hotel room. And then we went to the Giants game yesterday, even though we got our butts kicked. We had like field passes and we got really good seats, and it was just an epic, amazing trip with my 9-year-old son that I'll remember forever. And I think he will too. And it was just he and like I looked at like when I pulled into my driveway, he was sleeping when we got home last night, but I pulled into the driveway of the house and I looked at my phone and the battery was full. And I had not been on the phone at all. And so yeah, man, like spending time with our children, like real qualitative, attentive time is something that I think more and more people need to hear because we're distracted every second of every single day if we want to be, you know.
I agree, man. Kids spell Lovetime, and it sounds like you came home with a full battery on your cell phone, but also a very full heart.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That is really cool. It's really, I'm a huge fan of these one-on-one experiences. I've got four boys, I know you've got two. And even if you only have two, it's like it that one-on-one time is so important. I mean, like Out of all the podcast guests that I know you've interviewed, I know I've interviewed, I mean, we're almost at 1,300 episodes now. You know, guests have always been able to point back to their childhood and say, my dad spent time with me. And when he spent one-on-one time with me, I literally felt like the most important person in the world. Like that's what it really means to those kids. Um, for you, with how did you grow up? Like, what was your upbringing like with even your own dad?
It was not the life that I've provided for my sons.
Yeah.
Very, very different. I can't recall. Um, well, that's not true. My dad, so my dad was an electrician and he focused on lighting design. So he was like, he did lighting and electrician, and he was very sick. He was a very sick guy mentally, unfortunately, and physically. So he stopped working in 1990 when I was 10 years old, and he was on permanent disability and Social Security. And but prior to that, he was an electrician, and every once in a while he would throw me in the car, um, and drive downtown to Canal Street. I lived in New York City, and my dad was a hoarder, so it was like getting into that car every time was just like a nightmare because it was filled with crap. And he would take me down to Canal Street so that he can go do his like shopping for his business. And he would double park the car, lock it, and leave me in it for like 45 minutes at a time. And it was terrifying. And I was this little kid, probably 5, 6 years old, and he'd leave me in the car so that he wouldn't get a ticket. And I would hide in like the passenger side footwell because I was so scared. I do not have good memories with my father. I'm actually in therapy right now, very specific therapy to focus on EMDR stuff to really sort of kind of unwind some of that because um, I just want to get to the bottom of it, like I know a lot of the things. I'm grateful for my life. I really truly do believe that I'm living my best life. I really do. And that said, I'm nowhere near as perfect, and I'm nowhere near where I think I have the capable of getting to. And I think a lot of the roadblocks that I find myself up against somewhat consistently are due to some of the issues that I have that I haven't probably looked at or dealt with in from my childhood. I'm very well aware of the things that went down. I mean, it was a very violent household. It was not a safe place. I slept at friends' houses as often as possible. I was because I was always looking for a way out of my house. I latched on to anyone or anything that would allow that to happen. And my mother was, we lived in a very small apartment. Again, like my dad was a hoarder. There was kind of crap piled up everywhere. It was just really an uncomfortable place to be. And my father would fight with me constantly from a very young age. By the time I was 12 years old, the child services were involved. He and I were fighting physically on a semi-regular basis. The physical stuff didn't really start happening until I got a little bit older, like, 10, 11, 12. But prior to that, it was a lot of verbal abuse, and it was really hard. It was just very, very hard. And I never thought of my home as home. I thought of it as uh the last place I wanted to be, you know? And so that kind of sucked. I don't regret it, and I don't victimize myself because of it. I'm actually grateful for it because I'm proud of where I am today and the guy I've become. And I really do believe that I had to go through those things to sort of land where I am. And I don't think I'd be as great a dad. Well, maybe that's not true. I don't know if that's true, but I really do want to be the greatest father I can be because of my lack of sort of father-son relationship as a kid in my, from when I was a child.
Number one, thanks for sharing that. I'm picturing being a dad now, and my youngest is 8, and even leaving him in the car. for more than like a few minutes, which I would really actually never really do, but like 45 minutes, like what's going through your mind? Like that's some of the things that I'm thinking about. Like just, and I love the fact though too that you don't victimize yourself over this. Like my story, I shared mine on your podcast, and like, you know, your story and mine, like they're kind of crazy, right? But I have the exact same statement of like I used to be the victim like years ago, but I'm just like, man, it's like really made who I am, like all the good and all the not so good, and I'm okay with that. I'm I'm curious with the two boys. So Finn is 9, and then the other one's younger, correct?
Dakota just turned 7. Let me just turn this AC off. Give me one sec.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Yeah, Dakota just turned 7 in September.
So with your boys and how you grew up, the thing that I'm curious about is there's two paths that every parent is going to take. And a lot of us will point back to our own story and experiences of like, well, this is why I'm doing, like, this is why I am who I am and I do the things that I do and all that. And it's like you could have been raised and been a terrible father, right? And you would have been like, well, that's why, it's my childhood. But instead, you're this on point father, and I've been following you for a long time, even before I came on your show. And I'm like, man, this guy seems very authentic, very real, very transparent, but all like I feel your heart through your videos and through the things you put out there. And the thing that I have no doubt in my mind that you are this man for these two boys, Dakota and Finn. And the story I'm telling myself is, firsthand what this felt like growing up. And there's part of your identity is I will never allow under my watch one of my kids to experience what I did. So it's going to be better. Is that pretty accurate?
As accurate as can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not, my sons know, I've had to throw the hammer down a few times, right, in their life, and it's literally, I've made a conscious decision not to raise my voice with my children. Now that doesn't mean that I'm not stern at times or assertive and direct at times, but I don't believe that raising your voice is necessary, because I think raising your voice is scary for them. It's not going to get the point across to them. And I know that's a hard thing for a lot of parents. And I'm not saying raising your voice at your children is the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying for me, from my experience, I got yelled at around the clock, and that never did anything positive. It just didn't, outside of create fear between myself and my father, and ultimately led me to never want to talk to him, never want to confide in him. I don't know anything about my father. That's the truth. Like, we never sat down and had like a real man to man, and he's dead. He's been dead for a long time. So I'm sad about that. But I will say that I just made a conscious decision that raising my voice at my children doesn't get me anywhere. But figuring out a solution or a system that I can get the point across in a stern way, i.e., I'm in charge and you are my son and you must listen to me now, way, is a similar way that I kind of conduct in business and leadership. I don't get angry and mad and flip out, because I just don't, I think it's useless. The few times that I've had to were, for example, one of my sons had a temper tantrum and like hit my wife. And when that happened, I made it very, very clear with a very clear voice that that will never happen again in this house, ever, ever, never happen. And both of my sons, you know, felt the wrath of that. And I believe that sometimes you have to do that, right? But other than that, if my sons are giving my wife or me a hard time, and it's time for me to step in, or if I'm the one handling it, I talk to these kids like they're adults. I talk to them like humans, and with the goal of getting a positive outcome. And I know that, you know, the business of business is relationships. The business of life is relationships. It really just is, right? Like I believe wholeheartedly in this relationship capital thing. And the way you develop and hone and cultivate relationships is not through being overly emotional and, acting on your emotions at all times. It's being able to have a calm, cool, collected way of communicating that is able to accomplish a positive outcome, you know.
Yeah, no kidding. And not to mention the fact that you know, I honestly believe that your boys, they're if they know what good looks like, the odds stacked in their favor to, replicate that are much higher than if we gave them a bad experience. I think it's guys like me and you that we have our job is tough. It's like if we're the pattern breakers, it's like, okay, I just gotta I often refer to it as like you go to Home Depot and you buy that brand new Pit Boss smoker or whatever it is, Traeger or whatever, and you open up the instructions. It said, here's 100 ways not to put this together, but best of luck, you'll figure it out. But I feel like the template you're giving your boys is like, these are the things to do. I'm curious about the not yelling thing. That is something that, if I ask any man who comes and does life with us and in the alliance and the mastermind, or I'm like, hey, what's one of the biggest struggles you have when it comes to your kids? Patience. It's always patience, right? It's always like, man, like they get me so angry or I get triggered. But having a house that is yelling free, how do you go about that?
For whatever reason, it's kind of come innately to me. I don't, and I think it's from my past because of how chaotic and how uncomfortable and unsafe it was in my house as a kid, where it was a only yelling zone. My parents fought like cats and dogs, and my parents, my mother didn't really yell at us necessarily, but my father only way of communicating was to yell. And I just know, like, I'm sure we'll get into it, like my response to that was F you, man. Like, you want to talk to me like that? You've got no, you know, there's no other way to communicate with me. You just want to scream at me and call me names. I'm going to show you what that produces. And I did. I was after 12 years old, I was legitimately your worst nightmare child.
What'd you
I
do?
I mean, I was just there was no stopping me. Like I slept in Central Park. By the time I was 13, I was a full-fledged drug addict. I would leave on a Friday after school and I would just disappear until Sunday night and they couldn't find me, or this is before cell phones. Um, and
No
they,
way.
yeah, they had just had no control over me. And it was because I chose to rebel like crazy. And it was and honestly, like it was because I had no interest in being at home, right? Like it was not it was legitimately unsafe for me there, and it was uncomfortable for me there. And I honestly didn't feel, even though my mother loved me, the fear that my father instilled in me was so much more powerful. Like that's the scary thing about like fear and love, right? Like love is comforting and it's warm, but in a lot of cases, the byproduct of fear, from my experience, overshadows the byproduct of love in a home. So you can have a mother that loves you and she's going to coddle you after your father kicks your ass or screams and yells at you, but you're still scared. You're still scared, right? Like I was still scared. And it wasn't like, oh, every time my mom would like, you know, try to make me feel better, the fear went away. The fear was always there for me. And, it led me to also get sexually abused by a sports coach, right? Like I had a sports coach who was this awesome guy who I loved, who treated me like a son, took me to baseball games, took me fishing on the weekends, and he was grooming me because I was this kid from a pretty much broken home, and he predicated on me, and he knew that all I had to do with this kid was treat him like a son, and he's going to gravitate towards me, and then I can molest him. And I didn't even realize that had happened until I was later on in my teens. But ultimately, I loved this guy, and I didn't think there was, like, what he was doing. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it because I just didn't know any better from like ages, whatever, 8 to 10, 11. I just didn't know. And well, maybe it was probably like first grade to third or fourth grade is when it happened. And that would have never happened. My mother used to let me sleep at this guy's apartment, because she didn't, I guess in those days, like molestation, pedophilia wasn't like as big a thing as it is now. And she thought it was safer for me there. And this guy kind of showed up as like a pretty stand-up dude, I guess. But at the end of the day, like my kids, my kids would prefer to be home over anywhere because of how awesome our household is and how safe it is and how loving it is. Now, I'll have some guys, tell me, "Oh man, you got to be you got to be tougher with your boys," and you know, and maybe they're right. I don't know, right? Like I didn't have a good blueprint, so I don't know. I'm kind of like winging it. But I do know that I'm raising my boys um, the way I think will garner the greatest results for them. Every single night when I put those kids down, my wife and I go back and forth. And since they're born, we do a few things when I put them down, and we're very structured with it. You wouldn't be surprised, right, with a guy like me, structure.
Right,
But
right.
I take the kids upstairs at 7:45. We go upstairs. They hate brushing their teeth. So I figured out a system to make them want to brush their teeth. And I give them their toothbrushes and I put them up against the bathtub and I go, all right, dudes, 60 seconds, go. And they battle. It's called the toothbrush battles. And they battle, brush their teeth. And I'm like, I count down 60 seconds. And then on the last second, whoever pulls their toothbrush out first wins. And they love doing it. We do it every night. And it's just like an incredible, easy way for any parent that's looking to get their kids to brush their teeth and you have more than one kid, just put them in a battle. I like introduce them like they're WWF wrestlers. I'm like, coming
Ha
out of
ha
the
ha.
Dakota the Animal Chernow against his brother. And they love it. And so we do that. And then we sit down and we read two books or one chapter book. We read a chapter. And then after that, they go into their beds and I lie down, I put on the sound machine and I say, all right, boys, give me the 13 things. And these 13 things that I've been, sort of having them say to me over the years are values. These are 13 values that I think have helped shape my life. And they know them by heart. They both say them. And the 13 values are always protect your brother. Ladies always go first. Squeeze and eyes, which is when you give a handshake, you squeeze the hand and you make eye contact. Remember people's names. Lift up the toilet seat when you need to go to the bathroom and put the toilet seat back down when you're done and wash your hands. Look to the left before you cross the road. Look to the right before you cross the road. Kindness always wins. Always have courage. Be kind to mommy when daddy's away. Always tell a parent, teacher, or guardian if you're going to step away from an area. And I love you. And those are the 13 things. And then after the 13 things, I say, all right, boys, you guys know that you can be anything you want to be when you grow up, and your dad's going to support you as long as you do it for yourself and nobody else. What's it going to take? And they both say courage. And then I say, and what is courage? And they say, being afraid and doing it anyway, as long as it's for the good. And then after they say that, I tell them, guys, I love you to death. I sing a song and we go to bed. And we've been doing that every single night since they're born.
My God. Dude, the just thank you for that cheat code. Holy crap. Like, dude, that's amazing. That's amazing. I love that because, well, number one, let me start out with the most important one, the values. Like, we talk about values in our house, but like reinstating them at bedtime like that, I've never thought of that. That is brilliant. I love the toothbrush battle. Like, dude, trying to get my 8-year-old and my 10-year-old to brush their teeth right. Like, it is like, I feel like I'm like, dude, I've done everything. I'm like, listen, guys, you don't want cavities, you don't want bad breath, you don't want like you want white teeth. I'm using that tonight.
Dude,
I'm using that tonight.
I'm telling you, and like introduce him and be like, all right, guys, here's the deal. This is a battle. This is a real battle. You guys are going head to head. You're going head to head, and there is going to be a winner. No sore losers. And you kind of introduce them. They look at me, I look at them, I put my hands up and I do the countdown, and they love it. They love it, and they go,
That's great.
they brush their teeth, everything. I'm like the best toothbrusher, and the first one with the toothbrush out of the mouth wins. It's great.
Oh my God, dude. That is great. That is so awesome. I love that, man. That is so good. Um, well, I'll tell you what, I wanna get to your sobriety story. But real quick, like you've been married for how long now?
Married 17 years,
Yeah.
together with Donna will be 20 years in April.
Wow, man. Okay. 2 decades. Like, let's just call it that. 2 decades. You didn't see like you like me, we didn't see these good, habits of what a connected marriage looks like. I'm curious, what is it like for you and Donna? Like, how do you guys operate?
Yeah, it's a great question. We are uncomfortably communicative.
Oh yeah. So
Uncom
like, are you talking about like just like, can you guys get really direct feedback, like brutal honesty type thing, or is it just like there's no
brutal,
hold? Okay.
brutal honesty, and have made a commitment to each other. When we got married, the minister that married us, she basically said, "Look, I'm, you know, I'm a woman of God. I'm going to give you one piece of advice that's not very godly, but something that I want to share with you, to hopefully keep you guys intertwined for the rest of days. And it's going to be to not go to bed angry at each other. And I would ask you guys to both make a commitment to me and to the church to do that." And I looked at Donna, she looked at me, and we shook hands on it. And
Man.
I probably, we're not perfect, right? But I could honestly count on maybe one hand since we've been married the amount of times that we've actually gone to bed angry, probably 2 or 3 times, where it's like we've had an argument that's really sort of bled over. But what that requires of us is, if there is something that we need to discuss, we do it. And and when I say uncomfortable, like uncomfortably communicative, I mean, I believe that anything that is festering is going to ultimately manifest into a far more severe problem than it actually is.
Oh
Not
yeah.
that, like it could be a big issue that you need to talk about, but I could promise you that you don't talk about it and you let it fester, it's going to be a far bigger issue, right? And so I have just gotten very comfortable, and she's gotten very comfortable being like, hey, like we need to take some time and sit down and talk about this thing, and it's not going to be fun, right? Preface it. Just, it's not going to be fun. Like sometimes it has to do with parenting, The biggest one that we had was, um, well, we've had a few big ones. But one of the bigger ones that we had was right before we had our first son. And I'm circumcised because in the 80s, they kind of circumcised all the kids when I was born. And my wife is from Europe, and they did not circumcise in Europe. And so she was very adamant about not having Finley circumcised. And I was like, well, I want him to look like me, and I'm his dad. So, like, I don't want to have to, like, and like I don't want him to feel weird when we're taking a piss in the toilet together, and he looks over and he goes, "What's that? Why is yours different than mine?" You know? And so I was very, very adamant on like having him circumcised. Not for any religious reason, just because I just didn't want him to feel uncomfortable. She fought and fought and fought. We fought hard on that. We fought for days, we fought for days and probably weeks on that. And ultimately, and I'm grateful for it, she won because we did a bunch of research together. We looked around and, the reason why men were circumcised in my generation, a lot of men were circumcised in my generation in the United States, was because a lot of guys were coming back from the Vietnam War with infections in their penis that were not circumcised. They were in the trenches for weeks and months, not showering, and they got infections underneath their foreskin in the war. And so the United States said, well, from now on, in the case there's another draft, all the men are just going to get circumcised and we're not going to have to deal with this anymore. And, now we're not drafting anymore and ultimately find out that like you don't need to get circumcised. And I did the research and she was able to prove to me that like it's just not necessary. So anyway, it's an example, right? But I think that is sort of the what makes our relationship. I have found my true soulmate in my wife. Does that mean that like we're ravish, uh, does that mean that we're having like all sorts of crazy sex every night? No, no, it doesn't. And I've also come to believe that like if your relationship is contingent on like how often you have sex a week, a lot of men in long-term relationships are going to suffer, right? Like I think sex is very important in a relationship, very important, and we make it our job to do it, once or twice a week.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're just like, it's not the priority, right? Like you got kids, you got life happens and you've seen the same person walk across the room naked for the last 20 years. You're not like, out of your gourd every time. So, um we've kind of just like gotten comfortable with the fact that like, hey, like this thing is not only about sex. This is about partnership and companionship and friendship and romantic love and not like doesn't need to be this hot and heavy thing, like that you see on TV in the movies, right? Like people, just crazy, insane, whatever. And so, she is without a question of a doubt my person. She's my person, and I deal with her shit, and she certainly deals with mine. And we communicate often, and even when it's uncomfortable, we do not allow things to fester. And I would say if there's any advice that I can give couples, male, female, whatever, if there's something that's bothering you about your partner, it would be better served for the greater good of your relationship, no matter what it is, to discuss it. You know, Last thing, and then we can get into the sobriety thing. When the pandemic hit and everybody was forced to be at home, my wife and I work a lot, and my wife and I was home now. Now I was home, and she typically is used to getting that time during the day. She takes care of the kids, and she takes care of the house, and we've made that we agreed to that arrangement. She was a very successful model for many years, and once she got pregnant, we had children. She and I had a conversation about it, and I was luckily in a position to say, hey, like, let's talk about what this looks like. Like, do you want to be traveling all over the world with now that we have kids? And she was like, I don't know. Like, we should talk about it. And we did. And I was like, I think what would be great is like, let's do a few years without it and see how we are financially and see how you feel. And she was like, I think that's a great idea. Like, let's see. And then about a year and a half after Finn was born, she decided that she wanted to go back. And I was like, awesome, go for it. Like, do it, by all means, I support it. We'll figure out, some help or whatever we need to do. And then she went back and she spoke to her agent. Her agent was like, all right, we're going to send you to Europe for 6 weeks. And I was like, this is real. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to do that for 6 weeks? And she was like, I definitely do not want to do that. And so now Donna's like, she's the best mom on the planet. And watching my wife with our kids, like I'm I'm the luckiest guy alive. I really do believe that. And I know that I have like a blessed situation with my wife, and it's not perfect, of course not. But and there's definitely times where it's like hard, like we got into a
Yeah.
thing not long ago and she really got angry at me, like really angry at me. And then she came home, she went for a walk, she came home and she was like, are we like going in separate ways? Is that what's happening? And that was like, I was like, look, we live very different lives, right? Like we're a unit at home as a family, but I'm like building a business for the third time, and like that's the reality. You're not doing that. I am doing that, right? And so if if that's if I'm not as present as you need me to be, like I understand that, and I will take that on the chin and just know that I need to focus and be better at that. Um, but yeah, like it's not perfect, but but it's also not supposed to be, right?
No,
Like
yeah.
you can get into an argument or a fight with your partner and go all the way to the dark side and be like, this is obviously a divorce. Like this is obviously we're way too far apart on this. Or you can be like, hey, like this is a relationship, like we're gonna get through it. We're gonna get through it, and we just have to be communicative with each other and have patience and be able to step outside. I think one of the hardest things in any relationship, whether it's a marriage or girlfriend, boyfriend, business, whatever, like the hardest part I think is for one of the partners to step outside and see the other person's perspective. That's the hardest thing to do. Like you feel like you're right. You're arguing for your point, right? You're arguing for your side of the case. And sometimes you need to pause, and I need to remind myself of this. I need to pause and be like, dude, step outside of your righteousness for a minute. Step into think about what she's arguing for, her case, and try to see it from her side,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know?
I love that, man. The reason, the interesting thing about your relationship, right, is that, yeah, it's not perfect. Neither is mine. It's really good. You describe you and Donna's relationship much how I would describe me and Jessica's. We're best friends. We're honest with each other. We love each other. She's my favorite person. Like we hang out. It's not perfect, but here's the big point that I really want everyone to take home from what you said. One of the things that we've been saying in the dad edge community for a couple of years now is never ever ever allow something to go unsaid that might be stewing or brewing, right? Because let's just say it's something minor, like let's just say like your wife feels that she's doing the majority of the housework and she really wants you to help, but she keeps it all bottled in. She doesn't tell you about it. And then one day she explodes and she's pissed and you're like, wait a second, where the heck did this even come from? And then she turns over at you and says, you know what, I really don't want to be with you anymore. Like I can't even tell you, man, Michael, how many emails I get on a monthly basis. It's probably on average one a week, if not one every other week, where I'm like, hey man, like urgent 911. My wife, we've been together for 8 years. She literally just shell shocked me. She told me she doesn't want to be with me anymore. She wants to talk separation. I didn't even see it coming. I honestly believe that the unspoken things left unspoken is the polyp that metastasize into the cancer that eventually eats away at the relationship, which is resentment, emotional resentment. And if you don't say it, it's like the colon cancer thing. It's like no symptoms are there. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I got stage 3 colon cancer. Like how did I don't there's no symptoms. Well, you have it. And I love the fact that you guys are very proactive. You guys are very honest with each other. And I love the fact that you're both willing to listen to, like, even with the example you shared, like, what is she trying to tell me here? Like, how do I get off my high horse here and just listen, right? What you did. And she does the same for you. So I love that that operation you guys are following as far as like how you operate within your marriage.
One thing that I'll share that I'm actually listening to for the second time now, because I feel like it's such a good book, is Wild at Heart. Have you ever?
Yeah. Yes. I've had John on the podcast twice. I love his
Really?
stuff, man. Yeah.
Yeah, so that book is just like, I think it's one of those books where it really kind of, I think it helps men to like sort of unpack this masculinity thing that we think we either do or don't have. And I just think it's a wonderful book. I think it's a great book for dudes, especially married guys that are, you know, just whatever phase or whatever, season of the relationship you're in. It's just a great book to bring some insight, you know.
I 100% agree. I love that book. I still remember, what every man needs is an adventure to be had, a beauty to rescue, and a battle to fight.
Yeah.
And if you're right, and like if you don't ever feel 100% fulfilled, there's probably one, two, or even all three that are missing, and you're like, what the heck? Like, what am I doing here? But I want to segue to sobriety, and it's because like I've done, in the past I've done challenges. 2016, I went a year without alcohol. 2022, went a year without alcohol, and just unexpectedly, like this year, I started 75 hard, about 100 days ago. And I will tell you, that was the easiest one to get rid of. I was telling my wife last night as we were sitting there because we went to dinner last night and I got a non-alcoholic beer and she's like, "Are you ever gonna go back to drinking?" And I was like, I'll never say no and I'll never say yes. I don't know. I don't want to put like a definite on that, but here's what I do know. I'm starting to look at alcohol the exact same way I look at McDonald's, which you will never ever see me put McDonald's in my mouth or like really any like type of crazy nasty fast food. I just don't do it. I identify as a person that doesn't eat fast food. So she's like, when I told her that, she's like, "Wow, you are serious," because she knows I won't eat that stuff. But tell us your sobriety story.
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of started to get there earlier, but basically at around 12 years old, I I needed to find a way to escape from the life that I was living.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who she went to like a pretty fancy private school, and I was in public school. Lots of kids, not lots of money in public school, a lot less kids in private school, a lot more money, which means they get first dibs on, drugs. And she had she had a house in the Hamptons. I would go, I used to sleep over her house. She was a really good friend of mine. I used to sleep at her house all the time. Her parents would take us out to the Hamptons on the weekends. And I remember one weekend we were hanging out. She pulled out some weed. She had a bowl. She lit it, and I smoked it and felt safe. I was like, all right, here I am. And that, was the beginning of a journey about 11 years long of a battle with drugs and alcohol that nearly killed me. I, moved out of my parents' house when I was 15. I was selling drugs, using drugs, drinking a lot, working in restaurants. I stayed in high school somehow. I graduated high school. I can't tell you how, but I did. And even went to summer school when I didn't live in my parents' house. But yeah, I had a very, very uh, love-hate relationship with drugs and alcohol. And then, later in my teens, probably 18, 19, it started getting really dark. And, 20 to 23 was when it was very dark and it was around the clock and I couldn't stop. And then heroin became a part of it towards the end, and I overdosed in July of 2004. Luckily, came to, didn't die, still here with you, talking to you. And 2 weeks went by, and I knew that that was the end for me. I kind of succumbed to the fact that I was just going to die this way, and so I wanted to end fast. And Luckily, I blacked out one night, woke up about 16 hours later, had slept through work. My boss um, told me to come to the restaurant, and he was like, I love you, kid. I'd been working there for almost 3 years at that point, and he was like, I love you, kid, but you're dying. Everybody knows you're dying. You look like a zombie, and I can't employ you. I can't pay you to do this. I just can't ethically do it. You got to go. And I begged him for my job back because it was the only thing really tethering me to life. And he said, look, you can come and clean the restaurant, and you get here at 8 o'clock in the morning. You can come and clean the restaurant if you get sober, and I'll think about potentially giving you your job back later down the road. But for now, this is all I can offer you. And that day, August 2nd, 2004, was the last time I had a drink or a drug. So it's been 20 years. I just celebrated 20 years in recovery in August. And you know, my life ever since has just gotten better and better and better and better and better and better. I mean, I look younger now than I did when I got sober. And that's the truth. I feel younger now than I did when I got sober and I was 23. So when I got sober, I was introduced to these two guys who really kind of swooped in, and they were these big, tough dudes that were Muay Thai kickboxing competitors. And I called a friend who I knew was sober, and she was dating one of these guys, and they came to meet me. And this one guy just sat and listened to me for 4 hours. And I felt like it was the first time anybody had ever listened to me in my life. I told him everything, and I probably lied a lot, I'm sure. But he listened to me, and he essentially gave me a plan. And he was like, this is the plan that I'm going to propose, that you do and follow my lead. And I promise you, if you follow this plan, you will absolutely live a life way beyond your wildest dreams. And if you don't follow this plan, maybe you can stay sober, but the chances of you thriving are just slim to none.
What was
And
the
the plan,
plan? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
so the plan was very simple. He wrote it out. It was a plan from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed. And he basically explained to me that, like, you know, you don't get to live yesterday because it's gone. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. So let's not plan for tomorrow. Let's just set up a system so that you have the best possible chances of staying sober and surviving in a great way from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed, because that's all you get. And I was like, okay, I understand. And basically it was, get up as early as you can in the morning. As soon as you get up, get out of bed and drop down to your knees and ask God for help. And I don't care if you believe in God or not. I don't care if you know who you're praying to or not. All I want you to do is just ask for help. God, please help me. I need as much help as possible to stay sober today. And I didn't have any kind of religious stuff. So I was like, okay, no problem. I can do that. And then he was like, then as soon as you're done with that, I want you to go to the bathroom, take a piss, brush your teeth, put on your contacts, splash some cold water on your face, and put on a pair of sneakers and get out the door as quickly as you can. I want you to take a walk or a run or a jog. It could be a block. It could be 10 blocks. It could be 10 miles. I don't care, but I want you to get up and move your body first thing in the morning. And as soon as you're done with that, I want you to come back and I want you to have a big bowl of oatmeal. And you can put whatever you want in that oatmeal, but it's easy, it's fast, it's accessible, it's inexpensive, it's healthy, and you can make it taste like anything you want. And you can add anything you want to it. And then right when you're done with that oatmeal, I want you to go to a sober community meeting. And I want you to sit in the front row, and I want you to raise your hand and say who you are and why you're there. And after you're done with that, I want you to come down to this gym, and I'm going to teach you how to be a man, and I'm going to kick your ass. And it's going to be in the form of Muay Thai kickboxing. And we're going to train for 2 hours every day. And if I'm not there when you get there, you're still going to train for 2 hours every day. And once you're done training, you're going to have chicken and broccoli for lunch. You're going to go home, you're going to take a nap, and you're going to get up and you're going to go to work, and you're going to have dinner as early as you can, ideally before 9 p.m. And then you're going to go to bed as early as possible. Right before you go to bed, you're going to drop down on your knees. You're going to say, thank you, God. You're going to get in bed, you're going to close your eyes, and go to sleep, and rinse and repeat. And I said, okay,
Okay.
let's go. And I'm telling you right now, that's the plan that I live to today. The same plan.
Dang, man.
I do, and I've been doing that for 20 years and, 2.5 months. And he was right. He was absolutely right. My life has just gotten better and better and better. And I'm living a life way beyond anything I thought ever. I've done well in business and I've made money and I've created businesses and sold businesses and all that stuff is not what counts in my life beyond my wildest dreams. I am happy. Not all the time, but most of the time. I am genuinely no artificial flavors. Look, life in the face every day, deal with life on life's terms. I am a true warrior gladiator in life. And I don't take the edge off with a drink at the end of the night because I'm stressed out. I deal with it and I work through it. And I've learned how to manage the stressors of life in a very pure way.
Th-
And, you know,
That's awesome, man. Well, this is why you thrive in structure, right? Um, I'm guessing Creatures of Habit, the overnight, the meal one, right? High protein oats. This obviously was inspired by this entire thing? Yeah.
100%.
I
The whole
figured as much.
the
That's
story, the
awesome.
story of Creatures of Habit was I was trying to figure out what to do next. I was in the restaurant business. I'd opened up a bunch of restaurants in New York and sold a bunch of them right before the pandemic. And I was going to open up another restaurant called Creatures of Habit because habit has been the, habits will make you or break you. And I've lived on both sides of those tracks. And I like the make you side a lot better than the break you side. And so I've just learned that like the decisions that we make on a daily basis, specifically in the beginning of the day, will paint a picture of what the rest of the day could look like. There's always things that are going to come up that'll derail us. But if we start strong, I kind of say like, think about it like this. You're at the horse races, right? And the horses are at the gate and there's a lot of anticipation. They're waiting for those gates to open up. All of a sudden, wow, those gates open up and the horse trips right out the gate. The chances of that horse winning that race or even coming close to winning that race after all those other horses are flying out the gate are just slim. The chances are very slim. And so don't trip in the beginning of the day. Like set yourself up for success in the beginning of your day. And for me, nutrition at that early stage in my journey was a massive win. Like eating something healthy for me felt like I had won. And so I learned that there are wins that I can control every single day. Fitness, nutrition, sleep, mindset, mindfulness. These things, I don't have to pay any money for it. And I can actually control the outcome, which is finishing it and I've won. And so I've set my mornings up with these things. So when I was thinking about Creatures of Habit, I said, this oatmeal that I've been eating every single day since I got sober, which at that point, before I launched, I was like 16 years and I'd made this crazy oatmeal concoction that I had been making for years. And I was like, you know what? I'm not opening up a restaurant. Nobody's leaving their house. I'm going to spend the next year working on trying to figure out how to make my oatmeal into a business because it saved my ass and it saves my ass on a daily basis because I know that I feel much better if I have a day of eating healthy than a day of eating unhealthy. And if I start my day with a healthy meal, I have a better chance of eating healthy throughout the day. And I want to share that with as many people as possible. So I spent a year working on this formula and came up with it. And, it's a blend of gluten and glyphosate-free oats. It's got 30 grams of plant-based protein, chia seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, pink Himalayan salt. It's got vitamin D3, omega-3 fatty acids, probiotic and digestive enzymes in it, and you make it overnight. It's the easiest thing. It takes you 30 seconds to make before bed. You put it in the fridge, you pull it out in the morning, you add a little milk to loosen it up, and it's a perfect, full, satiating, incredibly delicious, healthy meal starts you off, you know, out the gate strong. Like you're strong out the gate, it fuels your body. It's got the perfect macros um and it's also, quite frankly, given me an opportunity to tell my story of overcoming adversity. Like you never know what is going to be the thing for you. And oatmeal was a catalyst for me. It was part of my journey in winning in life. And I wanted to be able to share that with people. So we're 3 years in, kicking butt, creating some new products and yeah.
I gotta tell you, man, it's before I even came on your show, I ordered it and it's delicious. It really, really is. And 30 grams of protein for overnight oats, like, come on, like that's stellar, along with all those other nutrients that you have in there. Truth be told, I've tried every single one of your varieties, and I gotta tell you, this is nothing against the other ones because I love all of them, but like I'm a peanut butter freak. Anything with peanut butter in it, I just gravitate towards. I probably would eat, a turd with peanut butter on it. Like that's how much I like it. But your peanut butter banana one, I really, really like.
Let me give
Um,
you a hack, dude. So this is a
yeah,
factor hack. So peanut butter banana is definitely my favorite flavor for sure because I'm a peanut butter nut too. But what I do is I make two servings at a time, and I split the chocolate and the peanut butter into each one. So I do half chocolate, half peanut butter, so it becomes chocolate peanut butter banana, and it is so bomb. It's so good. I want to give a discount code to your audience as well. To try it, they can use Dad Edge 20, the number 20, and if they want to give Creatures of Habit a shot.
got it, man. Well, dude, that's very kind of you. And for those of you guys who haven't tried this, I'll have the link in the show notes for you guys. But peanut butter banana, caramel, maple caramel, blueberry banana, vanilla, apple cinnamon, chocolate, strawberry, walnut cream. Dude, I haven't tried that one yet. Like, I'm probably gonna go place an order myself as soon as we get done here because I think I want to try that one. But dude, Michael, I got to tell you, man, when I came to New York and I was on your podcast, like just felt this absolute incredible connection to you. And I'm guessing it probably has a lot to do with the fact that we both raised boys. We've both been with our significant others. You've been with Donna. I've been with Jessica for the exact same amount of time. We're both ridiculously into fitness. Neither one of us drink. Um, we share a lot of the same common values that you shared. And I mean, it's no wonder, like, probably why we feel a connection and a chemistry because I think we're really just kind of cut from the same cloth, not to mention the fact, same kind of background on top of it. So, man, I'm a big fan. I'm cheering for you, and I'm not a big fan because you got a huge following and a great product, but because of the man behind all of this and the experiences behind all this and the messages behind all this. So thank you for being so transparent, man, and thank you for just inspiring the world. Like I'm telling you guys, in my audience, I follow Michael. Instagram knows I like his stuff because he always pops up on my feed, and I watch and listen to everything you do because it's really inspiring to me, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, man. I feel the same exact way. When I hopped on today, I saw you. I was like, "Oh, it's Larry." Like, like, and we've only met once, but there
Yeah.
was like, didn't even dawn on me that that was the case. Like, I feel like I know you well, and obviously I follow you, and I love your content as well. So, yeah, dude, we're cut from the same cloth, and we're basically the same person.
I agree, man. I agree. So, guys, not to worry, head on over to the dadedge.com/, 499 for this show. Again, the dadedge.com/, 499. We're going to have all of Michael's website and links in there, as well as his social. And I'll put the coupon code in there for you guys too. If you go to Creatures of Habit, that is spelled with a K, .com. I'll have it in the show notes for you. And you use our coupon code DADEDGE20, you will get 20% off products. I'm probably going to be the first one to use that actually today because I'm gonna place some order stuff.
Awesome, man.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Talk soon, brother.